All right, welcome back, fifth graders. We're going to be adding decimals today. New skill in chapter 5. We're going to be going through with our objective today. I will add decimals while exploring the use of models and rounding. So I have some models down below there. We're going to be using those in our lesson today, among other sorts of models, to help us with the concept of decimals, parts of numbers. That's what a decimal is. It's not a whole number, it's a part of a number. We're also going to be doing some rounding to help us with estimating, to make sure that our answer is reasonable. That's why we round. Check for reasonableness once we have finished. All right, so in your notebook, if you'd please take out your notebook, go ahead and put down chapter 5, lesson number 6. Go ahead and write this chart in your notebook, thousands to thousandths. This will be helpful in today's lesson and going forward while we're doing decimals, adding and subtracting in this chapter. Pause the video if you need. All right, so these are our rounding steps. Number 1, we identify the place value that you're rounding and we underline that place value, that digit in that place value. Number 2, we identify the digit to the place value column to the right. So we circle the number to our right. Now that number that we circle, number 3, we need to determine if that number is between 0 and 4 or between 5 and 9. And you can see 3a there. If that number is between 0 and 4, that means a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. That's the number we've circled. If that's true, then we keep the number that we've underlined the same. B, if that number is between 5 and 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then we're going to go ahead and increase that number that we underlined by 1. Once we have done that, number 4, all the digits to the right of the place value turn into zeros. Everything to the left of the number that we underlined stays exactly as it is. Pause the video and please write down these rounding steps in your notes now. Stop the video. All right, so with that said, that understood, let's go ahead and practice some here. Go ahead and get my pen. Go ahead and use a red pen here. We're going to round this to the nearest 10. So you can see it says 10 right there. So we need to identify the tenths. So that would be this column right here in the tens column. So if I'm going to write this number 3,482, 3,482, it would be the 8 that I'm going to identify. So I'm going to underline that digit. So I'm going to underline the 8. And number 2, I'm going to circle the digit to the right. So the digit to the right of the 8 is the 2. Now I need to evaluate. Is it between 0 and 4 or is it between 5 and 9? Well, 2 is obviously between 0 and 4. So that 8 is going to stay the same. That wasn't a very good S. Let's try that again. There we go. That's better. Okay? So our approximation, you notice my equal sign looks like it's squiggly. That's on purpose. It's because it is an approximation. So approximately, the 3 stays the same, the 4 stays the same, the 8 stays the same, and I have to turn that 2 into a 0. So my rounded number is 3,480. Let's go ahead and try this one here. Again, underline the tens column, circle the digit to the right. Now I evaluate. Well, 9 is going to make that go up 1. It is between 5 and 9. So that 1 is then going to become a 2. So our rounded number is 4,000. 620. All right, so the next slide, we're going to go take a look at some of that modeling. So as you can see here, we're going to show some modeling. So you see that big square full of little tiny markers. That is one whole. I always like to think of this in terms of money. So one whole is like having one whole dollar, which is also equal to having 10 dimes, which is also equal to having 100 pennies. The value is the same. $1, 10 dimes, 100 pennies. They're all the same. So if you look at the numbers on the bottom there, $1 is equal to 10 tenths, or one whole is equal to 10 tenths, which is equal to 100 hundredths. Okay? Because of the place value. Like, take a look at the tenths here. So that long rod, that would be tenths, which is, think of it in terms of a dime. And a dime is the same as 10 pennies. Or 1/10 is equal to 10 hundredths. The value is the same. Yes, I know a dime is different than 10 pennies, but the value is the same. They're both worth 10 cents. And lastly, we have our single unit there, which is equal to hundredths, or written as a decimal, 1/100th, as opposed to the dime, which is 1/10, which is opposed to the dollar, which is one whole. All right, so let's take this example. Sally saves $14.72 in June and $3.14 in July. How much money did she save altogether? So again, let's think about that modeling. So if we have the $14.72, we have one $10 bill, we have four $1 bills, we have 7 dimes or 7 tenths, we have 2 pennies or 2 tenths, or hundredths, So think in terms of that. Now the $3.14 she saved in July. So we got 1, 2, 3 wholes, $3, 1 dime, 1/10, and 4 pennies. Let's go ahead and bring that up. Forgot to hit that. All right, so let's take a look at this. So over here in June, she has saved $14.72. Now you'll notice that anytime you have change here, that's always going to be in the decimal. Those are the ones that end in the THS, tenths, hundredths, right? Always have that in our suffix at the end of the word. In July, she saved $3.14. So let's go ahead and write $3.14. It's modeled over here. We got 3 wholes, we got 1 dime, we have 4 pennies. So let's go ahead and put these together, and we can add them together as an algorithm. So in June, she saved $14.72. And in July, she saved $3.14, and they want to know how much did she save altogether. We're finding a total, right? Whenever you hear the word total, that's got to be a clue to you're adding or you're multiplying. In this case, we are adding. We're getting a total. We go ahead and start at the hundredths column. We can go ahead and add that. We have 6 hundredths. We have 8 tenths. We have 7 ones, and we have 1/10. So if you look at that all together, let me get rid of, well, take that back. Let me just use a different color. So if we have the one $10 bill, we have the 7 $1 bills, and we can see that visually there. we have the 8 dimes. I'll go ahead and use green for that one. So we got 8 dimes all together when we add that up. And finally, for the pennies, go ahead and use brown. We got 6 pennies all together. So you can see that with the modeling. Think of decimals. Think of it in terms of money. Probably more you're associated with. And then we're going to line them up with the columns. Now the most important thing is these right here, these decimal points. These decimal points need to be lined up. So when you're adding tenths on tenths, ones on ones, tenths on tenths, and hundredths on hundredths. That is the most important part of adding and subtracting decimals. All right, let's go ahead and take this example. It says Mia buys each item shown in the table from a pet store. Find the total amount of the money that she spent at the pet store. All right, so before we actually add this, let's go ahead and find an estimate of what Mia spent. So we have a round number. So we're going to go ahead and estimate these numbers, and we're going to estimate them and put them in the estimate column right here. So $6.95, that is about $7, isn't it? $4.25, that's about $4. And $15.84, that's about $15 if we are going to estimate that. So to get a total amount here, if we add all this up, we have $26 approximately. So that is our estimate, right? That is our estimate. Now let's find the exact number. How much did she exactly spend? So she bought a chew toy for $6.95. Notice that I'm putting that around this decimal right here, right? I'm using that decimal. That's my anchor. It never moves. The decimal's always between the ones and the tenths column. $4.25. Again, anchored around the 1 and the tenths column. And the bird cage, she spent $15.84. So now we just need to total this up. Add the columns. We need to add the hundredths column. 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 4 is 14. So I put the 1, it gets in the tenths column, and I put a 4 down below. Imagine you had 14 pennies. Couldn't I change that into 1 dime and 4 pennies left over? That's what I just did there with the rounding. Now let's add the tenths. So we have 9 plus 1, that's 10. 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 plus 10 is 20. So if I had 20 tenths or 20 dimes, that would be the same as changing it into 2 $1 bills. Bring my decimal down. They just all go straight down. Now let's add 6 plus 4 plus 2 plus 7 is $17. Could I make that into 1 $10 bill and 7 ones? Yes, I could. And then 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. So $27.04. Is that close? Is that reasonable to my estimate? Yes, it's very close to my estimate. Yes, it definitely checks. It is definitely a reasonable answer. Had I gotten some crazy number that's not close to 26, then I would know I had made an adding error somewhere. All right, if you go ahead and open up your practice book, page 336. I'll go ahead and write it right here. Page 336 for me. We're going to go ahead and work through this problem together. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to figure out our estimate, and you can see that they have done that for us here. They've changed 19 and 6/10 to 20, and 4 and 31 hundredths to 4. 20 plus 4 is 24. So that is our estimate. We want to check that when we get done. We have lined up our decimals. That is where everything starts. This is the most important part of adding decimals. Make sure those decimals line up. So we have tenths on top of tenths, hundredths on top of hundredths, and all the columns are lined up. Now we just need to simply add these columns. So starting at the right, and we work our way left. So 0 plus 1 is 1, 6 plus 3 is 9. We bring down our decimal. 9 and 4 is 13. 1 plus 1 is 2. Now that we have this value, we can compare it to our estimate. Is it close? Oh yeah, it's really close, isn't it? They're almost the same number. So, excuse me. Yes, this number here, 23 and 91/100ths, it definitely compares to my estimate. It definitely checks for reasonableness. All right, let's go ahead and estimate these first. So you can see they have done that. Whoops. All right, let's try that again. I hit a wrong button. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we wanted to go ahead and estimate. So they have done the estimating for us. It is around 7. 6 plus 1 is 7. Now let's just go ahead and add. 6 plus 2 is 8. 3 plus 4 is 7. 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 and 78/100ths. Is that close to 7? Well, yes, of course it is. It checks for reasonableness. All right, go ahead and do number 2. Estimate, add, and then go ahead and turn the video on for the answer. Pause the video now. All right, so our answer for this. First, our estimate, 1 plus 0. Yes, that's 1. Let's go ahead and add these together, these columns. So we're going to always start and work our way right, or left, right? 9 plus 3 is 12. 8 and 1 is 9. 0 in the ones column. So let our decimal make a little bit bigger. 92/100ths. That is definitely fairly close to 1. Think of it as 92 cents. You almost have one whole, $1. So yes, it definitely checks for reasonableness. They're very close to one another. All right. I would like you to do 2 things for me here. I would like you to go ahead and estimate these values. And once you've estimated, I would like you to go ahead and add these for the exact answers. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and check your answers here. So pause the video, work the 3 problems out, and then come back and check your answers. All right, so first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and change these to our estimates. So our estimate is going to be about 9. Check that for reasonableness when we get done. This little spot, we can put a 0 in to fill it in so that we make sure that these columns stay aligned. So 4, 13, 8. So 8 and 34/100ths. Yes, that's very reasonable. It's close to 9. So estimating this would be 15 plus 10 or 25. Again, fill in a 0 here. Kind of keep these columns nice and neat. 6, 10, decimal, 5, 2. Is that close? Oh yeah, it's very close, isn't it? And finally, this last one, go ahead and fill these in with zeros. It makes it easy to add. Got to estimate first. Obviously, 25 is 25. This is 8, so our estimate is 33. Go ahead and add these. 6, 4, and 8 and 5 is 33. Obviously, very close to our estimate. Good job. Let's go ahead and try one. Oops, hit the wrong button there. Let's go ahead and try the next page. Again, go ahead and try these. Find your estimate. Add. Pause the video now. Come back for the result. Alright, so let's go ahead and solve these. First, let's do our estimates. So we got about 35, and we got about 12. So it's 47 as an estimate. Let's go ahead and add these. 8, 9, 6, 46, and 98/100ths. Very close to 47. Next one, let's go ahead and round this. That would be 1, that would be 0, so our estimate is right about 1. Let's go ahead and add these for exact. 2, 10, 1. And that, again, is very close to our estimate. It checks for reasonableness. Let's estimate 9, estimate 2 for a total of 11. Now we can go ahead and add. 4 and 5 is 9. 1 and 0 is 1. Bring our decimal down. 9 and 2 is 11. And again, it checks out for reasonableness. It's very close. Hopefully you got those 3 answers correct. Alright, turn your page. I'd like to take a look at number 15 here. Solve this problem if you would, and then come back for the answer after you have finished it in your practice book. Pause the video now. Alright, so this says Horatio bought a logic puzzle and batteries from a toy store. Use the table at the right. Find the total cost of the 2 items, including tax. So, like we did before with Mia in our first example, I'm just going to go ahead and make my estimates first. So this is about 15, and this is about 10, and this is about 12. So if I add all that up, it's about $37. So let's go ahead and add this now. Now let's go ahead and add this right here. Add all 3 of these numbers together. 5 and 9 and 3, that's 17. 9 and 1 is 10. 7 and 3 is 10. So it's a total of 20. Make sure to bring my decimal down. 4 and 2 is 6. 6 and 2 is 8. And then I guess got to add the ones. 1, 1, and 1 is 3. So my total is $38.07. That's pretty close to our estimate of 37, isn't it? So that is definitely checks for reasonableness. Hopefully you got that. Alright, let's skip down to number 20. It asks, how does place value help you add decimals? Go ahead and respond to that, if you would, please, on your practice book. Pause the video and come back for the answer. Alright, so how does place value help you in adding decimals? Well, the most key component I told you was that the most key component when you're adding decimals is that decimal point. Now, whether you have ones or tenths or hundredths, you can fill those in. Those always line up. And if those line up, the decimal points, that means the tenths are going to be lined up. That means the hundredths are going to line up. That means the ones are going to line up. And all the other place values are going to line up. Have to make sure that these decimal points are lined up. And if the decimal places are lined up, then your place value is going to be lined up. And that's how it helps you add decimals. So let's go ahead and take a look at our final slide here. Let's think about what we learned today, what we talked about today. Take a moment, think about that. So what have we discussed today? So we talked about modeling, how we can use decimals are kind of like money, like dimes and pennies and dollar bills. We can use that as a guide to help us understand and have the concept of what the numbers represent. We're going to also use rounding to help us to make sure our answers are reasonable. And we learned when we're adding up decimals, we need to make sure, number 1 priority is to add up the columns, the like columns. We do that by making sure that our decimals are lined up. If our decimals are lined up, then our other columns will be lined up as well in our place value chart.